Thank Thank you, Brent. Good morning, everyone. My name is Reverend Judy Pilot, and I am honored and touched to be leading the celebration of life for our beloved member and our dear, dear friend, Adrienne Ikerd. We've come here today to remember and to celebrate the life of Adrienne, who made her transition from this incarnation on February 7th. She lived a life that was rich and full, and today we remember and celebrate the blessing that she was to her family, to her many friends, and we also express our gratitude for her service to the community at large, and especially to our Unity of Kalamazoo spiritual community. We also come together this morning to give comfort and to give caring to those she has left behind, to cherish her memory. Her son David, her daughter Rita, and 4 grandchildren, Dr. Robert Ikerd and his wife Sheila, and Michael and his wife Vanessa, all from Longview, Texas. Granddaughter Jen Kays of Los Angeles, California, and grandson Forrest Kays and his wife Eva from Kalamazoo. There's also some very good-looking grandchildren, great-grandchildren here today, great-grandchildren. Robert Alexander, Austin Scott, Dustin and his wife Tony, Ashley Ann, Robbie Forrest, Sasha Eva, Sophia Ann, and Roxy Nicole. And so we take a moment to just hold them in our thoughts and in our prayers, and hold them in our hearts as they begin to move through this time of adjusting to life without her. As we prayed together a little bit before the service, I shared with them a Native American concept that we must move once fully around the seasons before we can truly begin to experience the loss of a loved one. And so we are just beginning that process of moving through the seasons, but clearly moving through it together with love and faith and a great deal of connection within this family and in this community. I also want to mention that Adrienne leaves behind her beloved sister, Barbara McCourtney of Edwardsville, Illinois, some cousins and some nephews and some nieces. The family wishes to express their thanks and gratitude to the caregivers at Heritage Community and Hospice of Southwest Michigan. The nurses, the staff, and the aides were always there for Adrienne with compassion and joyous fun. And it was hard not to have joyous fun when she was around. So as we enter into this time of remembrance and celebration, let us begin together with a prayer. Father, Mother God, we acknowledge your presence here with us this morning and with us in every situation and circumstance. As we all move through the seasons of life, we have experienced your loving support in so many ways and in so many faces. And we are grateful for all of the blessings we have received, the lessons we have learned, and most importantly, for the love that we have shared. We are especially grateful today for the life of Adrienne, who has touched so many with her kindness, her humor, her wisdom, her sweetness, and her generous nature, and her faithful and compassionate service to friends, family, and her communities. Gracious God, we give thanks for Adrienne and a life well lived, and we ask for your grace to surround and support her loved ones and friends, all of us who are missing her today. This we pray in the name and through the power of the living, loving Christ presence. Amen. So, I knew Adrienne for probably almost 20 years. And I was always touched by her sweet nature, her soft-spoken manner, and her very, very kind disposition. Besides seeing her here at church, I visited with her a few times when she was living at Park Place. And on one occasion, I was there with a group of people who had come over from the church to celebrate her birthday with her. And I remember we were in this community room with a large table and cake and balloons and all of the things that are needed and required to celebrate a birthday. But what I remember about that day was the way in which she made a personal connection with each and every person who had come to visit her on that occasion, and how welcome and appreciated she made everybody feel. At another time, I was there on my own, and we visited in her room, and we sat and we talked. She was sharing the significance of the various pictures and the photos. She talked about some of the books that she had read. And in that entire time that we were together there, I was just, again, struck by what a gentle and calm presence she was, and by her incredibly amazing, positive, and happy outlook on life. She was just so easy to be with. When I read in her obituary that she had worked at the trust department for First of America, I smiled and I nodded my head and I said, well, of course. She's the perfect disposition to work in the trust department, right? And it also makes sense to me that she was a troop leader for the Girl Scouts when her daughter was growing up, and that she was a mentor to many young students, helping them work on their reading skills in particular. And that makes perfect sense to me that she would do those kinds of things, because she always demonstrated the kindness and the patience that kids so desperately need so that they can be brave enough to try new things and feel safe enough to make some mistakes and learn from those mistakes. It's an amazing gift that she had, and she shared it with all of us. I was not aware that she had traveled so extensively outside of the country in particular. But in retrospect, when I think about that, it makes perfect sense to me, because she definitely had a wider view of the world. She always, as personally connected as you would be when you were with her, she always had that bigger perspective to just kind of keep things in balance, if you will. So she had that wider view of the world and of life. And she was clearly someone who had a broader and a deeper understanding, deeper perspective of the true meaning of life. What it means to live authentically, and the beauty of living life with kindness and compassion. In addition to being a longtime member here at the church and serving on our board of trustees and in lots of other capacities as we grew from our very beginnings to the congregation that we are now, Adrienne was a long-standing member of our Tuesday morning prayer group. And those amazing people have been coming together, those amazing ladies had been coming together and praying for 60 years. It's my understanding that they missed once because of a snowstorm. State police said, "Don't go out." And they said, maybe we could make it. No. But this group has been so important to us because they have so consistently demonstrated the power of prayer. They pray over individual prayer requests that people will write out and then put into our prayer box, which is right out there in the lobby. So they pray over those individual requests. And then those requests are sent down to Unity Village near Kansas City, Missouri, and they're also then held in prayer for an additional 30 days. And it's a very interesting place. The prayer ministry has been operating 24/7 for 120 some years. They just are always there. And it originally started as a telephone ministry, but then people would send in written requests and now email requests and text messages and all that other sort of stuff. But I remember going there, and the prayer room is off to one side, and then there's a chapel where they have a flame that has been burning for 125 years, and someone is always present in that room, at least one person, often two, and all of the prayer requests are right behind them in large trays as they come in from the mailroom, and they get prayed over, and then they're there. And there is a palpable energy that you can feel in that space. And Adrienne was a part of that because she was such a strong part of our prayer ministry here. That is an incredible form of service because it's one that really kind of flies under the radar, if you will. People in our prayer group tend not to run around saying, "I prayed for you, I prayed for you." We know they do, but it's a quiet, loving, compassionate kind of service that they bring. And just as they prayed for individuals and families and friends and the people of this community, they also held the high watch for us. Just every week they would come together, they talk about various principles, how principles have shown up in their life, what challenges they've been facing. They would come together, they would do a check-in with each other, have some lunch together often, and then they would pray. And just this easy flow. And Adrienne was such a part of that because of this easy nature that she had. I will always remember her sitting at that table and in that group. And we are so grateful for that prayer consciousness and for that service. And we'll have an opportunity to hear from a member of our prayer group a little bit later in the service today. So at this time, I would like to begin to invite the family to begin to share some of their memories. My apologies. My apologies. We have a piece of music that we wanted to share with you this morning. Thank you for keeping me on track. And it's called Bridge Over Troubled Water. So.
Feeling small when tears are in your eyes. I will dry them all. I'm on your side. Oh, when times get rough. Can't be found like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down. When you're down and out, when you're on the street, oh yeah, when evening
And so we will continue to let her light shine through the memories and the recollections of some family members and Linda from our prayer group, and then we'll also take some sharings and remembrances from all of you. So you're going to hear from Rita, and she will be followed by Dave, and then Jen is coming up, and Bob, and then Linda. So in that order, now that we're back on track, Rita, come on up.
How do I honor my mother, my sister, my friend, so full of grace, Adrienne, Lorraine, Bennett, Ikerd? First, by thanking all of you, the people who cared for her, loved her, honored her, and the nurses and staff and all of that at hospice and all of those people who every day dressed her, cared for her, fed her. I know there may be hippopotamuses, in the room, so I won't mention names. But there one nurse, when I was later, very late, she called me aside. She said, I have a story. I said, okay. She says, you know, I have to come in and I have to check your mom's blood sugar and all of that a lot, you know, daily. And I said, yes. And she said, I walked into your mom's room and she said, are you here on business? And the nurse replied, yes. And Mom said, monkey business. She was a gracious, delightful soul, loved by so many. I remember as a child, in the wintertime, coming home from sledding, having hot cocoa and warm molasses cookies waiting. In the summertime, lemonade, and on very hot summer days, she would read to us, and I remember leaning against her cool shoulder and listening to the words of Les Miserables. She taught us both how to read and told us the beauty of books, that they are always our friends, and all the knowledge that's held within those we can obtain if we are quiet enough to listen. I remember all the birthday parties. She and my grandma put together so many great birthday parties for us when we were kids. And the birthday cake, I always wanted a chocolate cake. And Mom made a chocolate cake for me for my birthday, even after I was fully grown, working full-time at Biggs Gilmore Communications, and she would bring that cake to share with all my coworkers. I remember days when my neighborhood was mostly boys, not very many girls, and so I played marbles, and I was quite good. And I would beat the guys, and they wouldn't like it. And they might tease me, and I would come in crying. And Mom always had an apron on, and of course, the front would always be kind of wet and moist from whatever she was doing. And she would stop whatever she was doing and hold me tight to her, my tears against her wet apron, feeling so much love. And she always had time, and it was always unconditional. And the brownies and the Girl Scouts, I think to keep track of me. And when junior high and high school came around, there were tennis courts on Davis Street, 2 blocks away. We would get up at 5 in the morning, walk to the tennis courts, play a couple sets. Sometimes I had to climb the fence to get into it because it was locked from the inside. And then go home, and she would get ready for work and walk to work. I think that's remarkable. She walked everywhere. When our grandma, my dad's mother, lived with us for a little while, she was an avid reader also, and she wanted to read all these Westerns. So Mom, bless her heart, would walk downtown to the library, get about 10 books, come home. Grandma would read those books in 1 week and want more. So, of course, Mom trudged back to the library, get 10 more books. I think Grandma read the author Gray series probably 3 or 4 times and didn't realize she'd read the same book again, but that's okay. I know Mom was a searcher of spiritual truth. The whole family, the Bennett family, was always very spiritually aware, searching constantly for knowledge of the universe. I remember visiting all kinds of denominations of church when I was young, because I think Mom was seeking, what's the right place for me? And I remember Grandma and Mom and I went to a seance, and a woman spoke from the dead. And Mom and I and Grandma sat there, and this woman actually talked to them from friends that used to sail with them on Gull Lake. I was astounded. I thought, wow, there's more to life than we even have an inkling of knowing. Her spiritual awareness and the search for truth led her to all kinds of different studies. Edgar Cayce, Walter Russell, a student of spiritual enlightenment for sure. Never a harsh word for anyone. She saw the good in everyone. I never heard her criticize anyone in her life. It was always, well, they must have a reason or something. She would give them the benefit of the doubt. She touched lives of all she met. Gracious, kind, and talented, a sweetheart and a firecracker of a woman. And from a friend, Chris, I remember reading the letters to the editor, smiling as I read a letter from your mother, thinking how cool it was that she was a conscientious citizen. I remember watching the news one night, and there was your mom outside the Republican headquarters protesting. Your mom was never afraid to voice her opinion and never afraid to stand up for what she believed. And that is so true. But in a quiet way, in a full of grace way. And that's why Bridge Over Troubled Water was significant to her. I asked her years ago, what are some of your favorite songs? And she said, I really love that one. And so years later, I asked Patricia Pettinga if she and I could sing that at Mom's memorial. Unfortunately, Patricia is probably dancing with Mom right now, and that's okay. Anyway, she was certainly a bridge over many troubled waters throughout my life. Always supportive, always accepting, always with unconditional love. Her sense of independence did not come truly until she learned how to drive. When my grandma, Bennett, her mother, passed in 1990, she said, "What am I going to do with Grandma's car?" I said, "You're going to learn how to drive it, and it's going to be yours." "Well, where am I going to park it?" "Next to the garage on the grass, and if Dad has a problem, he can deal with me." She was never allowed to drive, never allowed to have a driver's license. So her sense of independence was remarkable. She really started to become her own, traveling, studying. When Dr. Bob was first in the Air Force and had a task of translating Russian from planes above, my mom thought, "Russian? That's an interesting language. I want to learn it." So she took classes at Western. She had a mentor who was a student at Western who was Russian, and so she learned how to speak the language. She took a suitcase full of clothes to an orphanage in Pushkin, St. Petersburg, our sister city, and talked to the children in Russian, because that was important to her. I gotta say, she never stopped learning, ever. And she always knew who I was, which to me was a blessing. The last few years, she kind of, she asked the same questions over and over and whatnot, and, you kind of knew that she had 3 minutes of attention, and then it would go back again and be cyclical. But that's okay, because the brightness in her eyes was always there, and she always knew who I was. I also want to thank my brother for being my rock, taking care of Mom's all her financial needs. He can pull a nickel out of a penny. And so between the two of us, I did Mom's laundry. He took care of her hearing aid batteries, doctor appointments, all of that. Thank you. And to my daughter and to my son, Forrest, thank you for collecting Mom's things the day she passed, because you got to get it out of there. That was so gracious of you and so kind, and I really, truly appreciate it. And Jen, coming all the way from Los Angeles, from your busy, busy world, to be here and to support me, I really thank you for that. And to all of you for being here, thank you. It means the world. So, Mom wrote a prayer, and it was about peace. And her words were, one doesn't pray for peace, but to pray in the essence, pray peace. The word "for" puts it into a future situation that, okay, it'll be out there somewhere. But if you pray love, pray peace, you become what that is. And those were my mother's beliefs. She studied, and she also taught others how to read. She was a mentor in the public school system, just to make sure little kids had a chance to grow up and learn the beauty of words. and the knowledge that is within every book. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm glad to see everybody here. It's odd that somebody 98 years old has such a crowd. But I want to thank a few people. The nursing home was wonderful. My sister and my beautiful niece, who painted this. Over the last 13 years, my sister and I have had to make sure Mom made all her appointments, her doctor's appointments, going to the ear doctor, the dentist. We made sure she had enough clothes at the nursing home, and Rita ended up doing the laundry to help out. It was quite the thing. While she had been at Park Place since 2009, in 2013, in April, she had a fall and was pretty confused. I took her to the doctor, and when they said, well, she needs to go to the emergency room for more testing. She ended up in the hospital for a couple days, and when they released her from the hospital, we had to make a decision. She was going to rehab at the Heritage Community, and we had to make a decision. Do you want to stay in assisted living, or should we put her in the nursing home? That was a tough decision. I asked my mom, and I said, do you want to go into the nursing home? And she said, I'll be happy anywhere you put me. Her attitude was that she lived every day was a good day. A lot of people go to the nursing home and they're bitter, they're upset. Not my mom. My mom enjoyed every activity there. She was constantly on the go. After leaving the hospital in 2013, the doctors gave her 2 years. She lived for 8+. A lot of it because of her attitude. The people at the nursing home took extremely good care of her. She was kind of the poster child, if you want to call it, at the nursing home, because she really was a likable person and a joy to be around. There were some few challenges along the way. At 5 years old, she had her eardrums pierced to relieve the pressure, as that was the medical knowledge at that time. She had hearing difficulties all of her life. November 18th, 2020, she tested positive for the COVID. She was put in isolation or in quarantine for 10 days. The nurse, she had one nurse and that was it. And she was in a separate room. The nurse called me and I had a conversation with her over the phone, and it was very interesting. And I told the nurse, I said, you know, she's probably going to want to play bingo. And the nurse said, yes, we've already had that conversation. She loved to be active. If you didn't catch her by 10 o'clock in the morning, she was gone somewhere. When we had hospice come in October of this last year, she had pneumonia and she ended up in the hospital again. But she didn't want to stay there. And I went up to see her on that Sunday morning and skipped church. And she says, you know, I'm going home today. I said, well, has the doctor been in? She says, no, I'm going home. And so she did, and she recovered. They had her on oxygen, but she recovered from that and did pretty good. But things started to add up for the worst. She had a heart condition, and that kind of took it down. And the pneumonia weakened her lungs. There were a lot of good memories. Joyce Slunsky from church here used to pick her up at the nursing home and take her to the Westlake Drive-In for a hamburger. Also, Sue Skippers did that too, and that was a good thing. The prayer group, which she was a member of for over 55 years, came and visited her during her birthday month, and they would celebrate. They would have their prayer session, and they would have lunch together. My son and daughter-in-law from Texas brought up a quilt. And it was a beautiful quilt. And it was a good moment for Mom because she saw that quilt. And she really appreciated that. But most important to her was her relationship with my aunt, her sister Barb. My aunt would call every day at 4:30. Sometimes Mom would answer the phone or didn't hear it, so then I'd get a call from St. Louis. How's your mom doing? Well, she's okay, but she might have been out of the room, you know. But anyway, finally, in October of 2020, we finally got her some new hearing aids so she could hear. And they used to sing songs over the phone. The aunt would call, and they would carry on for a couple minutes, because she religiously called at 4:30 every day. One of their favorites was written in 1938, 1939, about the time that both of them were in high school. And the chorus goes like this: "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. If you only knew, dear, how much I loved you. Please don't take my sunshine away." Brett, would you like to lead us in that?
You make me happy
When skies are gray.
You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Never take sunshine away.
Finally, I want to thank my sister and my niece and all the help that they got from Tracy at church here, setting this up and putting this together for my mom. It's terrific, and it's something I couldn't do. And my nephew Forrest was there to help my sister, and we appreciate you all coming. Now we'd like to introduce my niece, and she's the one that did this beautiful painting here.
Hi, I'm Jen. I'm a granddaughter. I'd like to first read something my dad wrote, a letter of gratitude. So this is from my father, Vern Case. I met Adrienne because I loved her daughter, Reet. We are a passionate young couple. Almost daily, I spent many hours in Adrienne's house. I have come to appreciate her life as being for me in 3 parts: life living with David, life after David passed, active and engaged in the world in a new way, and life at the Heritage community, still active and engaged in her new community. I would like to offer a letter of gratitude for Adrienne and all that she meant to me, especially in the early years of our relationship. I remember her bright eyes and open smile. She drew you into her good space. She saw good in people despite what others thought. I see Adrienne reflected in her granddaughter, Jennifer. She is able to bring diverse personalities by creating safe, positive space for them to work together, like her grandmother. One of my early memories of Adrienne is a sense memory. The common gathering room was her kitchen. I remember David's pipe smoke, and more importantly, I remember Adrienne's fresh baked bread and real butter. There were many energetic, good conversations around the kitchen table. I appreciate Adrienne's faith. Her faith was a faith of attraction, not promotion. I was introduced to Unity Church of Kalamazoo and was comfortable attending with her. She lived Unity's positive message every day. Adrienne manifested God's love in her life and shared that love happily and authentically. She believed that people were naturally good, loved by God, and co-creators with God. Like Jesus Christ, Adrienne was practical in living her faith. She lived each day as a sacrament shared with others. I remember one of the last times I visited her at the Heritage community, we hadn't seen each other in a long time. She was not sure who I was, and she still had an open and accepting spirit. She was engaged with her community and had her daily activities scheduled. She still made time for me. She remains in my memory as her positive, laughing, loving, encouraging self. And I'd like to say a few words of my own. My grandma was a complicated, intelligent woman of conviction. I say that on the outset because her kindness, easy laugh, accepting, devoted, supporting nature might distract you from her very serious awareness. Tools to keep focus on manifesting and promoting good. She was always working for change, always being the light. And being ahead of her time required her to navigate the time she was in, to make the most of the many chapters of her life. Her accomplishments are many and important. But what I really want to say is that she delighted in joy and beauty. The blue fabric on her sewing machine, the pink bathroom, her closet of treasures she let me explore, wearing her shoes and slips and painting our nails together. Every room in her house was a little bit of magic, the greens and oranges, the wood. There are so many things that I wish I could ask her now. How did she transition from duty to adventure? How is she doing it now? She has a book called The Book of Early Whisperings by Walter Russell, and I found this quote. When I find myself in the light of all-knowing, I find within me the power which created the stars and made them move in their mighty orbits. And thus, in the light, I am that power. And she was, and she is. Thank you. I'd like to now ask Bob to come up and say a few words.
I'm Bob Ikerd, son to David, grandson, and I too have a message from another family member, from our great Aunt Barb, Grandma's sister, and I want to share that last. My first memory of making food took place in my grandparents' home on Oak Street. Grandpa and Grandma Ikerd could work wonders in the kitchen. Thanksgiving dinner was incredible. She made green beans, turkey with her unique oyster dressing, and I don't like oysters. She made creamed corn and mashed potatoes and gravy, and it was fantastic. You know, from the summertime, Grandpa might get out that big Weber grill, put a bunch of charcoal in it, make some hamburgers. Sometimes they would serve BLTs. But the meal that I remember fondly, and the invitation that everyone here would crave the most, was Sunday chicken. Yeah, fried chicken dinner meant Grandpa would break out the cast iron skillet. He would melt some Crisco, and he would prepare a bird like no other. Now, there's some of you here that know exactly what I mean. The outside was crispy, but it wasn't thick. The meat fork tender, and absolutely the best tasting chicken I ever had. In the world of fried chicken, there's Colonel Sanders, and then there's General Ikerd. Now, as fantastic as Grandpa's chicken was, Grandma surrounded it with perfect side dishes, mashed potatoes with that smooth gravy, creamed corn, green beans, and the most excellent homemade biscuits. And I remember Grandma inviting me and my brother Michael to make those with her one Sunday afternoon. Grandma showed us how she mixed the dough, and then she spread it out before us. Our job was to take a glass and gently press out the circular shapes. She patiently instructed us, and we used up all the dough. In the oven they went, and she moved on to the next task. In the years that followed, Grandma showed me how to make mashed potatoes, prepare the creamed corn, and the art of making gravy. I never did learn how to make Grandpa's chicken. When the meal was complete, we gathered at the table, gave thanks, and ate. And Grandma took time and bragged to everybody that Mike and I made the biscuits. They were the best. And I share this short story with you because this is one way that I remember my Grandma Ikerd. While teaching us how to make those biscuits, she was patient, encouraging, and complimentary. She was always this way, no matter what we did in life. During her last years, her memory failed, her body broke down, but her loving and graceful spirit never waned. The last time I saw her, she smiled, laughed, and cried. She said, "Thank you for coming. I do not remember you, but I know that you are family. And may we all live each day with joy like Grandma." Now, on the way here from Texas, we stopped off to St. Louis to see Grandma's sister Barb. She is 100 years old and just recently released from a nursing home. I asked her if she had anything to share with you all today. I really wasn't expecting much. I thought maybe she'd say, "No, I'll just watch the service," or she'd say just a couple of words. That's not what happened. This is what she said. I'm paraphrasing. "Tell everyone that Addo was a good person and a good sister, but sometimes she would get into trouble. We had to call the police once. She was late coming home from school, so late that we all went out to look for her. We asked a police officer to help us. Eventually, we found her at school. It was late in the evening, and I guess she just wanted to keep playing. When I inquired about Grandma's age at the time, Aunt Barb said that she was in elementary school." A second memory was during Aunt Barb's birthday party, at which Grandma opened up one of her sister's gifts, a bottle, and she drank it. It was perfume. Yeah. I'm not sure if they called poison control. But Aunt Barb's favorite story to share was when they both were around 8 years old. And if you have your program right there in front of you, open it up to the middle and take a look at the largest photo of some people in a raft. I think it's aptly named, they call it the Mad River. So if you look at the photo, Great Aunt Barb is in the middle in the front, and Grandma's right behind her. So Grandma talked Aunt Barb into whitewater rafting down the Snake River. They weren't supposed to go, but they were a late addition, and you see them packaged there in the middle. They were out west for a wedding, and Aunt Barb blamed the whole adventure on Grandma. She described how they were placed in the middle for protection with Aunt Barb seated in front of Grandma. In the rough water, their feet just went up in the air, and then Grandma would then push Barb back down. With the addition of the two octogenarians, cousin Sue Jean, who seated left with the look of terror on her face with sunglasses, she would eventually fly out of that raft along with the leader of the crew into the Snake River. Not for a short time either. Sue Jean said it was about 20 minutes before they rescued her. And later, our cousin would purchase some bib overalls and be forced to wear some uncomfortable undergarments. So in the words of the person who knew my grandma longer than anyone, she stayed out late, she drank stuff that she was not supposed to have, and she forced her sister into risky adventures. Thank you.
I feel like I'm part of the family. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming to honor, as well as to remember Adrienne, and learn a few new things as well. I'm Linda LaRoe, here on behalf of our 61-year-old Tuesday morning prayer group, of which Adrienne was a member. I used to be called the baby of the group since they consisted mostly of those of my mom's Lillian Hershey's era and beyond. Led by Marion Jaeger, at the time of its inception, I was 12. Lucky me. I was raised Methodist, but at age 7, my mom also took me with her to Unity. Unity and the amazing women of prayer group were most influential in forming my beliefs and principles ever since, and have created a very blessed life for me. Adrienne also was blessed to join this circle of women who loved and supported her unconditionally. Meeting every Tuesday to pray and meditate, they also studied all kinds of ideas and philosophies to help them understand what prayer is and how it worked in their lives. Adrienne had an open and curious mind. She belonged to this sisterhood seeking the good and positive ideas that could be incorporated into their already good lives. Over the years, we studied graphoanalysis and what handwriting revealed. We studied life after death and went to see Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. We studied the power and influences of words and how they impacted our life, both consciously and unconsciously. We read books by dozens of religious and philosophical leaders, discussed, digested, and applied their ideas in our lives. Every week, we begin our prayers with gratitudes, and Adrienne always had a long list of things for which she was grateful, especially including her family and friends. We move on to prayers about challenges, which we trust will be transformed into opportunities. The prayer group's love and prayers have supported us through just about every kind of challenge life has to offer. As I affirm weekly, God is the answer to every need. We release any anxiety and or fear related to these people or situations as we put them in God's hands. We end our prayers with transitions, blessing those who have passed and asking that heavenly helpers surround, protect, love, and guide them as they move into their next experience. Additionally, we welcome and bless the new souls who join the earth plane each week. Adrienne has now completed this earthly cycle of human life, and along its way, she's shown us beautiful lessons of how to live and grow. Prayer Group compiled a list of Adrienne's traits, a tribute to her and the mentor she was for us all. Included are kindness, calmness, simplicity, gentleness, never saying a bad word about anyone, peaceful, happy, joyful, accepting, never complaining, loving her heart birthday cakes, trusted, strong faith, embraced and lived unity principles, volunteered for many things, a joiner, resilient, and adaptive. At almost 99, Adrienne has joined all the original prayer groupies, Marion Jaeger, and more recently, my mom, Lillian Hershey, at 95, Joyce Zielinski at 99, Lucille Lewis at 102, and all those other members on the other side. And I might add that there are over 100 members that have passed through Unity's, or through our prayer group. Her welcome by the sisterhood of support and love must have been truly amazing and joy-filled. We bless Adrienne, and we thank her for the love, caring, and service she showed others, and for the exemplary life she created.
Well, my thanks to everyone for all that has been shared here this morning. And we also want to provide an opportunity to anyone else who may want to share a brief memory or a brief recollection. Tracy has a microphone, so if any of you would like to share something with us here this morning, just raise your hand and Tracy will find you and come to you with the microphone.
I'm Tracy. I'm the office manager here. I've known Adrienne for almost 25 years. She was an amazing woman. I met her through the prayer group, but she also was a great volunteer. She did chili bingo, and she did bountiful feasts. She helped with the office work. She folded bulletins and the newsletters, and so I got to spend a lot of time with her with that. And with the prayer group, they celebrated their birthdays every month. So she informed me the very first year that I worked that she wanted a heart cake. So every birthday, I had to make her a heart cake like her mom did. So I feel very honored that I got to do that for her. I love you. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Joe Averiette, and I actually first met Adrienne back in the 70s. I was married at the time and married to a Mason. And anybody that's been married to a Mason knows that your life kind of revolves around a lot of stuff. And so I met Adrienne there, and fortunately her husband David, and I was kind of like a duck out of water when it came to being in the kitchen and making all these meals and trying to serve people. And Adrienne was one of the women there that just kind of took me under her wing and made me feel like I was not inept. She was very encouraging, very kind. And then when I started coming to Unity and I saw Adrienne and David, it was like, it doesn't surprise me that they go to Unity because everybody at Unity is just really nice. So it was a blessing to know her. And the last time I saw her during COVID, there was several of us from church that would go out and visitation for people that were in nursing homes or assisted living, and we went to see her, and she was just the same old Adrienne. She might not remember us, but she was just as funny and as cheerful and a sparkle in her eye that you just can't forget. So,
Thank you, Joe.
I'm Tina Jackson, and Addie and David were the first people we met and were welcomed into Unity back in 1986. And their kindness will never, ever be forgotten by myself and my husband. And over the years, she would always ask, "How's your kids?" And she was just a wonderful human being.
Hi, my name's Ashley Ikerd. Adrienne was my great-grandmother, and my brother tells me that I've met her, but I don't remember her. I was really little when I met her, and I've always heard really, really good things about her, how kind and compassionate she was, and how everyone loved her, and how amazing she was, and I really wish that I had gotten to know her, and she really seems like she was an amazing person, and I'm so glad that she got to be a part of all of your lives.
And so are we.
My name is Debbie Reynolds, and I first met Adrienne back in the 70s when we both worked at First National Bank. And I was in my 20s, she was in her 50s, and there was something about Adrienne that I just found fascinating, and there was a light about her and a gentleness, and Adrienne is the one that got me involved in my spiritual life. I got introduced to unity through her, and we went to many seminars and classes together, and I'm sorry, this is so emotional because she was so special. I'm just forever grateful for Adrienne. And I look forward to seeing her on the other side. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for sharing with us this morning, and it is indeed an honor and a privilege to have known her, to spend time with her, as all of you have shared in your own special ways and heartfelt ways. And so, again, we just simply say, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for this wonderful, wonderful presence and individual who has touched us in so many ways. So we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and that's a little bit of a different perspective that we have here in Unity, but spiritual beings having a human experience. And the human body is the vehicle that allows us to experience all of the richness and beauty that the world has to offer. The body gives us the freedom to see, to hear, to touch, to taste and smell. It provides a way for us to live and be in the world. Through our bodies, we can touch and be touched. We can love and be loved. We can see the beauty of a sunset and hear the voices of our loved ones. But the human body is just a temporary cloak. It's a temporary cloak that we have borrowed for this journey, that we have put on for this journey. And there always comes a point in time where the journey ends and we lay down this cloak that we have borrowed. Death is the soul's laying down of that borrowed cloak, an exit from the vehicle in which we've been traveling. It's a transition from this human experience and consciousness to a state of pure divine consciousness, that state of consciousness from which we came. And as a long-standing member of this community, Adrienne knew that to be true. So the end of a specific human incarnation, the soul's return to that state of pure consciousness, may very well be just one of many transitions that we experience as part of the evolution of the universe, and God expressing through this creation that we call the universe. In Matthew, Jesus said, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted." And while there are those who would have us believe that the nature of this human experience is about suffering, Luke reminds us that it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And in John chapter 10, verse 10, Jesus said, "I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." So this human experience is to be enjoyed, to be celebrated, to be cherished for the precious gift that it is. And when it's time to lay down the cloak of this human experience, Jesus promised that there would be many rooms in his Father's house, perhaps more for us to do, other places for us to go. If nothing else, a place to call home beyond the boundaries of this beautiful blue planet. And we are now approaching the end of our service, and in a moment I'll be offering a closing prayer. And for that closing prayer, we will say together Unity's prayer for protection, first for Adrienne and then for ourselves. And you'll find the words for that in your program. So together for Adrienne, the light of God surrounds her, the love of God enfolds her, the power of God protects her, the presence of God watches over her. Wherever she is, God is, and all is well. And now we'll say that for ourselves. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And now I invite you to stand as you are able, and the hymnals that you'll find at the back of the pews, we're going to sing the peace song, and that is number 3 in the hymnal.